what does maximum attention, minimum budget mean when it comes to cybersecurity? Well, actually, in the Omdia survey that we did of security decision makers, we found that actually budgets are going up this year. 85% of organisations said that their budgets were going up, but security has huge amounts of attention on it. You know, there's headlines, there's attacks, there's all sorts of things going on. And every CISO that I've spoken to, every security lead that I've spoken to, says they still don't have enough money to deal with all of the cybersecurity issues that they need to. So it's about prioritization. That's why we're looking at where we think minimum budget, it's still not enough budget to be able to deliver on all of the security issues. So we're seeing a lot of prioritization, a lot of consideration around return on security investment, where traditional return on investment equations haven't really worked for the organization. So it's a really interesting area. Lots of organisations still facing huge amounts of attacks. We found 92% of organisations have had some kind of mishap, security breach over the previous 12 months. 47% of organisations have had major security breaches over the previous 12 months. So yes, maximum attention, minimum, not enough budget for organisations when it comes to security.
Omdia Cybersecurity believes enterprises can improve their efforts to get ahead of attacks by checking out and spending more time researching and investing in what we call proactive security. Proactive security is about technology that enables organizations to get ahead of threats and threat conditions before they're knocking on the door or breaking down the door of the enterprise. It's technologies like risk-based vulnerability management, attack surface management, and what we call incident simulation and testing, which is breach and attack simulation beyond. So there's so much better ROI in getting ahead of those possible attacks versus waiting to respond from those attacks and spending so much money dealing with the ramifications. That's why proactive security, we believe, is going to be a big change agent in enterprise cybersecurity in the years to come.
So when you say cloud security, our first initial thought would run towards the cloud native security vendors, or let's say cloud service providers. But today the landscape has evolved even faster than we expected, and we are seeing vendors in security from different domains come up with a cloud security solution. And these vendors are coming from say vulnerability management angle or EDR angle, network security, and coming together to solve the cloud security problem from different angles as they will. One important thing we are seeing is also the approach of the vendors that's changing a lot. They are paying more attention to a DevSecOps problem. They are making sure they're integrating the tools they already have in the market correctly. They are making sure the mean time to response is accurate or shortened than what it was before. And I think these are the main things that we were missing and running behind the acronym soup that I mentioned in the summit. So I think that that's going to be an interesting year for cloud security.
Now, it's interesting, as an analyst, I'll never admit to, any one best approach. We absolutely understand that every environment has specific requirements. But in our opinion, Secure Access Service Edge has phenomenal benefits for many organizations in the context that you are optimizing some of your service delivery. You are gaining the benefit of engaging directly with a vendor, whoever they may be, who themselves have exposure to hundreds of other clients, thousands of other clients, and then the benefits of that, their learnings are being applied to you. So in that sense, much like the world has taken cloud security, cloud by storm, like cloud has taken over transformation and so on and so forth, SASE can do some of that for security. Now, is it going to apply to everybody? Absolutely not, right? But it is very interesting to observe, and it really has a potential to help, because some of the key areas that people struggle with, device provisioning, device management, policy management, etc., you're going to centralize some of this, you're going to optimize some of this. It's a really interesting approach. if nothing else, it should absolutely be in someone's list of things to consider when they're doing a network refresh of some sort.
We're finding that many companies are being much more proactive in their defense, and there are very good and compelling reasons for this. You know, we talk about shifting left, which means encountering the attackers earlier and earlier in their attack process. This makes sense because you want to prevent them from ever encountering your network perimeter if at all possible. Now, some companies shift left just a step or two, trying to reduce the amount of time the attackers have to do their damage. Others are being far more proactive and hitting them further and further out, trying never to encounter them at their central security facility. Now, the important thing to know is that wherever you're doing this, it is almost always less expensive to stop an attack before it starts than to go through the remediation process. We're seeing companies take this to heart, be more proactive, and hit the attackers further and further from the defender's perimeter.
The key trend for me in IoT cybersecurity is regulation. Even in the last couple of weeks, there's been new regulation that's come out on the organisation side. I think it's kind of twofold. So you have regulation on the device side and secure by design side that's been moving incredibly fast over the last few years. And that's something that's going to come into effect mainly in 2024. So that's a real key year for organisations who are manufacturing IoT devices. On the other side, there's a lot of regulations that have come out where organisations need to adhere to these, and they may be users of IoT as well, so that will fall under that compliance. I think the other thing for IoT cybersecurity in terms of trends is consolidation. So there's a lot of vendors in the IoT security space. I think that's going to kind of have a lot of activity with mergers and acquisitions coming up. The other thing that I think is really key is that organisations want specialist vendors. So in the IoT space, there's a lot of IT security tools that apply, but realistically, I think the value of specialist vendors is really shining.
We're watching a couple interesting trends in security operations this year. One is obviously XDR continues to be a topic of a lot of conversation, but we've been watching, Omdia has been typically looking at EDR, endpoint detection and response, network detection and response, and cloud detection and response as a kind of foundation for XDR solutions. But we're seeing a lot more interest now in identity detection and response, as we call it, also known as identity threat detection and response. So that's one we'll see more coverage from Omdia this year. On the proactive side, there's too much to talk about quickly there, but certainly we're looking at a lot of consolidation of traditional disparate functionality into what we're calling proactive security platforms. So traditional vulnerability management functionality that might be expanding into more of an exposure management story, a consolidation of traditional attack path management tools, and also seeing some of the reactive vendors starting to pull some of that proactive technology into their solutions. So a lot of different buckets where that technology is ending up throughout the rest of the year and into the next few years for sure.
Data security posture management is an important development in the world of data security, really, because it brings this whole notion of data protection front and center as far as cybersecurity is concerned. And I think when you've got a secure structure and strategy and posture for your data and the security of the data, then it's very much more easy to build out a much more robust cybersecurity platform going forwards. What DSPM does is take a series of existing, although disparate technologies, and brings them into a platform, a single roof, or under a single roof, as it were. And I think that's important. It's more efficient to do it that way, obviously, but it also offers the opportunity of cost control as far as the business is concerned, the end user is concerned. Cybersecurity budgets are not huge, and so anything that the vendors can do to kind of reduce that cost as far as the businesses are concerned, I think is a good thing. But also I think it really does bring data to the forefront of cybersecurity, and understanding how that data is stored, is controlled, is protected around the business is a huge development, is a huge way forward as far as that overarching cybersecurity posture is concerned. So it's really important from that point of view.
So the manufacturing industry is responding by increasing the number of devices with security features. There's also a growing trend of connection to the IT network, which is going to have its own cybersecurity protection. And then there's also a growing trend to have very specific OT cybersecurity solutions focused on the manufacturing industry.
I'm Adam Itherington, Senior Principal Analyst at Omdia. It's wonderful to be here at Blackout. It's a very good question, and there's probably two things I want to highlight. The first is that telcos are a core part of critical infrastructure, so they are a target for attacks themselves. The telcos I've spoken to are investing very heavily in their own security and defense, and they're investing in tools and people and capabilities that's necessary to do that. And why that's interesting is that as the network becomes the foundation for digital transformation for large organizations, telcos then are becoming more and more of a trusted partner to other organizations, and they are surfacing that expertise in security around cloud and networks and increasingly into endpoint and applications for their customers as well. It's a very exciting space.
Yeah, it's a great question. I'd say that some of the key drivers are as follows. What came out in July 2022 was a specification called the DID 1.0, and that was from the World Wide Web Consortium. And basically this spec is global in nature. It enhances interoperability on a global basis. There are over 400 plus members of this association, and that's one of the key drivers for this technology. Another key one came out of Europe, which was called the EIDAS 2.0, and that's going to come into fruition next year, 2024, and it basically states that all member states must offer a digital wallet to all members of their country, so that's like 450 million people in Europe, the European Union. I think that's going to have a ripple stroke snowball effect on the decentralized identity market, and Omdia is actually forecasting that by 2027 the market for decentralized identity will reach $6.5 billion US. In addition to that, there's lots of vendors playing in this space. We have, from our research, we had over 110 vendors, including large vendors like IBM, Microsoft, governments like the US, European Union, Australia, Canada, etc. And then there's a lot of small startups as well. And this is all going to evolve over time, and there'll be more and more vendors entering this space. So that's why I think this market's going to blossom in the next 5 years.
So in terms of the highlights from Black Hat USA 2023, it's been amazing. I've loved it. People, that's one of my first highlights. There's so many people around and lots of opportunities for great conversation. Proactive security is the other thing that I would bring up. We talked a lot about it in the Omdia Analyst Summit. It's absolutely been a feature of all of the conversations I've had over both days of the show itself. So by proactive security, we mean kind of looking at what's going on in cybersecurity, making sure we're plugging the gaps that might become a problem in the near future. The other thing is artificial intelligence. I know everybody's a bit fed up of hearing about artificial intelligence, but it is all over here, and we're doing a lot of research at Omdia on shadow AI. So artificial intelligence, where organizations think they've got a policy that says no AI, no generative AI in the organization, it's too late. So actually we're hearing a lot at Black Hat USA 23 about how organizations, the security function, can deal with all of the issues that surround artificial intelligence. And it's hugely valuable to security as well. We've got to be honest, we've got co-pilots and companions, etc., supporting the SecOps function. So, you know, that I would highlight that as my second one as well.